Does Eun-Soo realize her true feelings? Episode 4 of soundtrack number 1 starts with Eun-Soo doubling down on her music. She's focused on making her lyrics sing, but interestingly, keeps Sun-woo's scarf close to her this whole time. She's made it, becoming a prolific lyricist. In fact, she's so good that even Taeyoon wants to work with her. As Marai retorts later on when she finds out he's a music god. While Eun-Soo revels in sharing the news with Marai and Jail-han, she very clearly misses Sun-woo. It's not the same without him. She messages her best friend and lets him know the exciting news about Taeyoon, but he doesn't reply. Does Eun-Soo date producer Wooil? Sun-woo finally does ring Donghyun, but his signal is intermittent and unfortunately, he's not able to stay on the phone. He also doesn't ring Eun-Soo either, who finds herself disappointed that it's producer Wooil ringing instead, inviting her out to dinner. Whilst they sit together, Wooil puts her on the spot and admits that he wants to date her. He set up this whole dinner as a way of trying to force that through. Eun-Soo speaks plainly, admitting that she's not really a fan of wine, and her heart no longer flutters when she's around him. For that reason, she's not particularly enthused about dating him. Wooil laughs it off, and thanks her for being honest, deciding to get the beers in instead. Thankfully they still get to work together, and change the tone of the entire evening to friends instead. What do the tarot cards mean? Eun-Soo's mum eventually catches up with her daughter, and the pair inevitably end up talking about Sun-woo. Eun-Soo encourages her mother to read her tarot cards. Just like Sun-woo several episodes back, Eun-Soo ends up choosing the same card her best friend picked, the one showing shadows of a couple holding hands. It turns out this card actually means someone very close to your heart, not physically far away. Eun-Soo's mother lied to try and protect Sun-woo, noticing his shocked look and wanting to save him from any embarrassment. After messaging Sun-woo playfully and telling him he's dead when he returns, Eun-Soo checks out the stuffed bear he got Eun-Soo and notices a card and a necklace in the back. The note reads that he'll always be by her side no matter what, which causes her to message him, revealing she has something to say. Does Sun-woo return? Just like that though, Sun-woo suddenly returns, leaving a flower shop and bumping back into his best friend. He's only in Korea for 10 days before heading off to Prague though. The flowers aren't for Eun-Soo either, they're actually for Marai, given it's her birthday. Jail-han surprises her with a little song and a brand new ring that night too, making the evening a joyous affair. The next morning, Eun-Soo heads over to surprise Sun-woo at the studio, but he's not alone. He has a new assistant in Seo-yin. Inevitably, she ends up getting jealous. When Seo-yin gets a taxi home that night, Eun-Soo encourages Sun-woo to walk her home. In doing so, Eun-Soo takes a leap of faith and broaches the subject of the pair dating. However, she can't bring herself to actually ask him, and instead, is forced to agonizingly watch him walk away. How does soundtrack number 1 end? Eventually Eun-Soo does admit how she feels to Sun-woo, apologizing for not realizing her true feelings, and his too, before it was too late. Taking that important step, Sun-woo writes in her lyric book, the one he got for her, and finishes the song with one sentence. Please stay by my side, I love you. As Sun-woo leans over, the pair kiss passionately. During the bonus track of the episode, Sun-woo and Eun-Soo spend time together, enjoying each other's embrace while listening to music. At the table behind them, Jail-han, Donghyun and Marai all talk about how they knew the couple would be together like this eventually. Soundtrack number 1 bows out with a satisfying final episode, one that wraps up all the big plot points that finally sees Sun-woo and Eun-Soo together. It's been a long time coming, but this simple but sweet K-drama manages to wrap up everything beautifully without compromising on character or tone. Although I personally would have liked soundtrack number 1 to have expanded out a bit and really dive into Sun-woo's time away along with Eun-Soo's career taking off, these are minor quibbles in what's otherwise been a very solid watch overall. Eun-Soo and Sun-woo make a great couple, and their chemistry has been pretty palpable right the way across the runtime. It's great to see them finally together, and it's a very satisfying way to end the show. Satisfying is probably the best word to describe soundtrack number 1, a solid no-nonsense romantic drama that manages to tell a competent story across its 4 episodes. Despite being short, this has been a surprise dark horse this year. Could we see a second season of this one? We'll have to wait and see. Has soundtrack number 1 been renewed for season 2? At the time of writing, Disney Plus has not renewed soundtrack number 1 for season 2. Given the respectable ratings over the weeks, it'll be interesting to see if they actually do renew this for a follow-up. The ratings have been pretty steady over the weeks, and given the relatively short runtime of 4 episodes, there's bound to be a fair amount of people who have watched this one. Based on this, and the fact international streaming hasn't opened yet, at the time of writing, there is a possibility that soundtrack number 1 may be renewed. However, given most K-dramas wrap up their stories in a single season, we predict that soundtrack number 1 will not be renewed. What we know about season 2 so far. Most Korean dramas are reserved to one season, and with the rare exception of ongoing Netflix shows, Love Feed, Marriage and Divorce, Hospital Playlist etc., then it seems unlikely that this one will be renewed. However, there is always the possibility that the actors return for a follow-up or even a spin-off Ayla, the Reply series. However, we'll have to wait and see if this one's greenlit or not. Would you like to see soundtrack number 1 return for a second season? Or do you think the story has run its course? Let us know your thoughts in the comments box.